identified as the top 10 archaeological finds of 2018. I am interested enough in this that I'll probably do a 2019 version once that comes out at the end of this year. So we're kind of close to that. So this will still be fresh in your minds when we get to the next one in a few months during the Sunday school hour. But I will be getting back to our regular programming starting next week, I think, unless I get preempted from that. And I'm being so we'll continue with our study of the coming kingdom, and the next section of the book has to do with the question of why is it important that we understand accurately what the coming kingdom is. So we'll be getting into that starting next week, and it's builds on a lot of stuff. And in the church hour today, I'll be hopefully concluding my 2-week summary of the coming kingdom, and there's some interesting stuff to discuss, and I'm hoping we can get through it. But what we don't get through won't detract from me starting next week, and maybe I'll wrap it up next week. But in this hour, we're taking kind of a light view, not a lot of deep theological significance to this. But one of the things that we do when we look at news in the world and things that are discovered in the world is we look at it in connection with what we know the Bible teaches and how the Bible teaches us to think and what we need to do with one another. So while it's interesting to look at these archaeological oddities that come up and discoveries, what I find fascinating, I'm saying we all the time, and I really mean me, what I find interesting and fascinating is how it ties in with what the Bible teaches. And I mentioned last week, that there was and I don't have his name, and I apologize for that again, because I still don't have it. There was a guy an archaeologist, who was looking for an ancient city. And he determined that he was going to find this city and spent many years looking for it. And then he determined to look for it on the basis that accepting what the Old Testament taught about this ancient city was true, and try and find it on the basis of taking the Bible and letting that lead him to the city. And on that basis, he was actually able to find this ancient city. And that was a lot of years ago, 50, 60, 70 years ago. But we still continue to do that, and we don't look to these archaeological finds in order to bring validity to the Bible. Because we believe that the Bible is true because of what it is. It is the wholly inspired and accurate and truthful Word of God. So it's nice to see these things in archaeology, but that's not the basis of our faith. We don't believe the Bible is true because we found a pomegranate from the hem that could possibly be from the hem of a priestly garment in a place where the tabernacle was supposed to be, for instance. That doesn't make the Bible true. The Bible's true because the Bible's true. And it's nice to see these things in archaeology that give us confidence in that. But the fact that the Bible's true is sufficient for our faith, and that's what our faith is based on, not these archaeological finds. So with that said, let's go to number 5. And I was a little excited about this one. There was a Becca weight discovered in the Temple Mount. I was a little excited about this one because I actually did enough research to find out how big this thing really was. And I had a couple of those, and they are right now sitting on my desk in the trailer that's being hauled somewhere that I don't know where it's going from my job site. So I don't have those stones anymore. But I thought it would be interesting to actually bring a physical stone the same size. But I want to talk first about how this one was discovered. And this was found on the site of the Temple Mount. Now, a Becca weight is significant in the Bible because if we read Exodus 38, verse 26, it says, a Becca a head, half shekel by the sanctuary weight for each one who was entered in the records from the age of 20 years. And that included 603,550 men. And this is from Exodus. This is the time at which the tabernacle was being built. And in order to raise funds for the tabernacle, they collected a tax from everybody. And this half shekel tax, this Becca tax, was what you paid, this half shekel weight in silver. Every man from the age of 20 on up was required to provide this half shekel weight of silver in order to provide funds for the erection of the tabernacle. And that became the tabernacle tax. In Hezekiah, in Ezekiel, when they were rebuilding the temple after the exile in Babylon, they also assessed a half shekel tax. So this half shekel tax was common in the raising funds for the erection and maintenance of the temple. It was called the temple tax. So even in the first temple time, they collected this half shekel or Becca tax in silver in order to maintain the actions of the temple. Now, the Temple Mount is not controlled. I mean, it's part of Israel, but it's not controlled by the Jewish authorities. It's actually controlled by Muslim authorities who have several significant sites for their faith on the Temple Mount. And here's a map of that area, and this depicts Jerusalem in Jesus' time, and it shows the Temple Mount here in the center of kind of the center of this slide. And you can see that the Kidron Valley is here, and the Hinnom Valley is here, and that kind of isolated that area, made it a very defensible position and place to build a city in ancient times. A lot of things have happened in the last 3,000 or 4,000 years in this area. Jerusalem's been destroyed many times, and when a city is destroyed, a lot of times they just level it out and build the next city on top. So there's many layers in here. And one of the things that happened is that these valleys have been slowly, because of conquest after conquest in ancient times, the valleys kind of got filled up with the rubble. And that went on for a long time. So the valleys have been kind of a rich source of a lot of archaeological information about Jerusalem in ancient times. Well, that kind of still goes on today. In 1999, the authorities, the Muslim authorities that were in charge of the Temple Mount site, decided to turn what is referred to as Solomon's Stables into a prayer room. And in order to do that, they did a lot of excavation and construction because the stables were actually below the surface, and it's a vaulted area underneath of the Temple Mount. So they built a wide set of stairs leading down to this. And in order to build this set of stairs, they excavated a lot of soil. This next slide shows a detail of the Temple Mount. And the area in purple and blue here are indicating the areas where a lot of this excavation occurred. They actually excavated more than 9,000 tons of material in order to build these stairs. And here's a picture from 1999 showing the construction. The platform up here at the top of the picture is actually the surface of the Temple Mount. And these archways and pillars that you see down here are what is referred to as Solomon's Stables, where it is now part of a mosque and a prayer room for pilgrims to come. And the area that you see leading forward here, where this truck is actually coming up, is the area where the stairs sit now to lead down into that prayer room. So this project began in 1999 and was completed somewhere around 2004. So they excavated all this material, And according to the rules, they weren't supposed to do this without allowing archaeologists and historians to actually go through the materials and stuff. But they kind of did this and just spread it out in the Kidron Valley and took it to dumps and things, and it's actually got put in 4 or 5 different places. Well, in 2004, an organization got permission to go through this material that had been taken out of the Temple Mount. And since 2004, they've been doing what's known as the sifting project, where they have gone in and sifted through this material to find artifacts. And they found a lot of interesting things. And one of the most significant, not most significant, but one significant thing that they found actually this past year, you can actually go to Israel and participate in this sifting project. You can go just spend a day there. You can spend up to 4 weeks there just sifting through this material, and they've gone through a lot of it, and there's still a lot of it to go through yet. But they've been able to find coins, seal impressions. And we'll get to that later, so I'll save that for then. But this has been an ongoing project for, I guess, somewhere in the neighborhood of 200 to 250,000 people have participated in this over the years. But it's something that is ongoing today. So this organization, oh, I went up wrong. Sorry about that. So this organization has sponsored this for a lot of years. And they found this Becca Stone. Now, going back to Exodus 38:26 again, that was the tax that was taken in order to build the original tabernacle. And, again, it's was mentioned a couple times in the Bible about being part of the temple tax. Now, this Becca Stone isn't very big. Now, you can imagine 9,000 tons of mostly dirt. They actually developed a process in order to help out with this. What they do is they take the material, they'll take a bucket of material and soak it in water for about 2 days. And then they take bucketfuls of that material and sift it by hand, rinsing it for about 30 minutes, and then sifting through all the stones and stuff and things that they find. And they found this Becca Stone, and here it is. It's not very big, you can see that. So, just think about 9,000 tons of material and how big that is. That was, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of truckloads of material. To find this little stone that's about 1/4 of an inch round, a large P, if you will. And it's embossed here with the symbol, with the Jewish or the Hebrew lettering for Becca. Except on this stone, this isn't the first one they've ever found. They found a few, but this one is actually etched in reverse, like it would be for a seal, where you would seal into a lump of clay and have it come out right on the clay. So what they're speculating, and this has been dated to about 3,000 years, or no, about 600 or 700 BC. This is a fairly significant, and I'm wrong there again. This is actually dated to the first temple time. So they think that this may have been used by the temple to collect the temple tax for the first temple in Solomon's time. And the fact that it's reversed here is an indication that the people that made this are the same people that made seals, and he may have just gotten confused as to whether he's doing it in reverse. So if you look in a mirror at this symbol, it actually is Hebrew written in correct marking Becca. So that's the Becca Stone. The next item that we're going to talk about is the governor of Jerusalem's seal impression. Now here, again, I'm going to mention this. Uh, when they would seal documents, they would either seal it into clay or wax, depending on the document. A lot of times it was clay. Now, when Jerusalem was destroyed, it was burned, and in several of the destructions of Jerusalem, they burned it. Now, when you burn clay, what do you get? You get almost porcelain. So a lot of these seals have remained intact because of the way the cities were destroyed. So the fact that this seal has survived to this point, although being soft clay when the impression was made, is probably due to the fact that the destruction turned the clay hard and turned it into almost a porcelain. So these seals are small, about a half an inch across. And this particular seal was discovered in an excavation at a site just adjacent to the area of the Western Wall. So it's outside of the temple area, but a little bit to the west. And they discovered a title here as governor of the city. Governor of the city is a phrase that's used in the Bible to describe the people who were in charge of cities. And it doesn't seem like a strange title to us because we're familiar with it in the Old Testament, but there hasn't been a whole lot of archaeological attestation to the use of that phrase in ancient times. So while they were cleaning out an excavation, and there's two pictures here. The picture on the left is of the excavation site. They found this building, and as they were cleaning out some of the mortar in the cracks of the stones and the walls of this building, they came across this impression, this seal. So that's where it was discovered, just a couple hundred feet away from the Western Wall. And you can see the relationship. The plaza that you see here in the picture on the right is the plaza that's in front of the Western Wall. So it's very near. And the history of this space isn't really well known, but it is believed to have dated several hundred years before Christ. In 2 Kings 23:8, the author lists a man named Joshua as the governor of the city in the days of Hezekiah. And this phrase is also used again in 2 Chronicles 18:25. So that phrase was used in the Bible, but not really authenticated in use in ancient times, according to archaeological discoveries, until this. Now, this also is a very small device. Again, I thought I had another picture of it closer up, but I guess I don't. But the symbol on here depicts two people facing each other with an inscription below it, which has the phrase, the governor of the city. Again, it is an attestation to a phrase that was used in the Bible, but not very many other places. But here we have evidence from antiquity that, again, reinforces the things that the Bible is saying as true. And that so the next item is also a seal impression, and it was discovered in an area just south of the Temple Mount, in an area that we know as the Old City, the City of David, and specifically an area that's called the Offal. And it is a signature of Isaiah the prophet in a seal impression. And I want to caution you here, it's believed to be perhaps, although this is not a universally accepted interpretation of this item, but it says Isaiah the prophet in the text, but it's broken off and the text is incomplete, and it's missing one letter to clearly say that. But they've examined it, and some people believe that it does. The inscription was originally the seal of the prophet, a signature of Isaiah the prophet, and others just say it's just an Isaiah, but just another name. So this seal was actually, again, found south of the Temple Mount, very near the Temple Mount. and it was found in a strata of area that dates it to about the time of Isaiah the prophet, which is another reason why it might have credence to that. But interestingly enough, it was found 10 feet away from a spot that another seal impression of King Hezekiah of Judah was found. And Hezekiah and Isaiah were contemporaries. So they were alive at the same time. So the fact that it was found so near this other impression is telling as well. So here is the area south of the Temple Mount, circled in red, where they're doing excavations where they found both of these seal impressions. And here is the piece that was found. And again, it's very small, but if you can see the diagram in the picture, and I'm showing it on mine and not on yours. If you look here, if you take that arc around and make an oval with it, you can determine how much of it is missing, and was there room for a character. The part that says prophet is here, and if you follow this border around, you can see that there is room for another character in this area where the piece is broken off, and that character would need to be an aleph in the Hebrew alphabet in order to completely say the word prophet, and it fits in there. But again, that is somewhat speculative. But it was found very near this one, which is complete enough to have the full, and this is the seal of the King Hezekiah. Again, they were found 10 feet apart in the same strata, and a lot of these things have given some archaeologists a lot of confidence that it is the seal. This one is the seal of the prophet Isaiah. So that was found in 2018. So the next thing, and we're going to get away from Jerusalem for this one, the next find number 2 on our list, and I'm not getting down there. There was a statue found that is a head of a biblical king from Abel Beth Makkah. Now, this area is in the northern part of Israel, and I have a map, if I can get it here. This line depicts the borders of modern-day Israel. And in this area, I'm not doing it on your map, am I? I'm doing it on mine. So the gray line here is the border of modern-day Israel. And in this little spit of land going up into Lebanon is where this site is, where they discovered this statue head. Now, it's just the head, and it's only 2 inches tall. And here it is. It's, obviously not a photographic reproduction of somebody's, but the date of this statuette is from 9th century BC. So this was the time when they had split after Solomon had died. So this is possibly a statuette of one of the kings of the northern tribes of Israel. But it's also acknowledged that it could be the head of a non-Jewish king as well, such as King Hazael of Damascus or King Ithabal of Tyre, who was the father of Jezebel. So they don't know who this depicts, but they, in doing research and looking, they're still also looking for more parts of this in the excavation that they're going through. And it's still speculation of who it is. I mean, this could be a real significant find if we knew who the king was that this depicted, because images from that period of time are pretty rare. But you can see the condition of this is very well kept. The band around his head is depicting a gold band, which would imply some sort of of authority. That would be the mark of the king, and the styling of the hair and the beard. They believe kind of implies that this is an Israelite king, but an interesting find nonetheless. So the next one that we're going to talk about was again found near Jerusalem, not in Jerusalem. So we're staying outside of Jerusalem. But the number one find, according to Christianity Today of 2018, is a ring that is a Pontius Pilate seal ring. Now, until the mid-1900s, there really had been no archaeological evidence indicating that Pontius Pilate ever existed. It wasn't until a discovery in 1967 that his name was found inscribed in a seal that was located in Jerusalem. So, there are people who, along with several of the other things that the Bible teaches, just felt like the Bible is just a compilation of stories and myths and things that happen. But there have been enough physical discoveries of Pontius Pilate now that really it's not the fact that he existed really isn't in question anymore. But this ring was found in an area that's south of Jerusalem, not too far from, Jerusalem, Bethlehem. Well, I'll just go to the map. Why am I doing this? Making it tougher for myself. This ring was found at Herodium, which is a summer palace that Herod built. And it's also the site where his tomb is. So Herod's tomb is in this site. Now, this was a pretty nice summer place. This wasn't a cabin up at the lake. This was a pretty nice palace. And it was built at the top of a hill, so it was very defensible. And I can see a place for a hot tub there and a few other things. So it'd be a nice place to get away from the city of Jerusalem, where Herod was king. And he built this, and the speculation is that it was also used by the governors and rulers that followed Herod, as well as a retreat and a place of sanctuary. So they've been doing excavations of this. Here's a picture of the site now, showing some of the archaeological features there. And it was in going through this that they found this copper ring that bears the seal of Pontius Pilate. Now, it's not a very big ring, and it's a copper ring, so it's probably not of high enough quality or good enough materials to have been worn by Pilate himself, by him himself, but was probably worn by one of his administrators in order to seal documents on his behalf. And this is what it looks like. It was badly corroded, so it was hard to read the inscription, but they've been able to use computer graphics and computer imaging in order to bring the markings to the fore. So they have been able to determine that this does indeed bear his name, and was more likely worn by somebody who was authorized to act on his behalf. So this is the top 10 list. There's a lot of things happening in the world of archaeology, and technology is really enhancing the things that are happening. One of the big announcements recently had to do with in Pompeii, when Pompeii was a location of a major library of knowledge and understanding at the time. And when the Vesuvius erupted and buried everything instantly, archaeologists for generations have been looking at that site, seeing how well preserved the artifacts are, and been able to learn so much about the culture of what was happening there. But the library also was buried and destroyed, and all of the papyrus and scrolls and everything were charred and burned virtually beyond recognition. But by using different techniques, they've been able to read some of the text. You know, if a scroll was rolled up, it would be completely carbonized, but in layers. So they've been able to do imaging through these layers and actually read some of the text on the papyrus. And they believe that they have found some of the earliest manuscripts of some of the Hebrew texts of the Bible, and they are working on ways of being able to read this. You know, so the technology that they're coming out with are going to be revealing more and more as time goes on. So it's going to be exciting to see what's happening in the coming days and coming years, and the announcements that come out. You know, just another one that almost made my list had to do with the discovery of a governor's mansion about the time of King David. And that facility, that building, was actually discovered by watching naked mole rats. Now, you know, naked mole rat is just as pretty as you can imagine from the name. But they're burrowing animals that burrow, you know, down as much as a meter or two deep, and they bring up artifacts with them when they dig their burrows. And so you can, by studying the piles that the mole rats bring up, you can say, oh, there's artifacts here, we should dig here. And another thing that they do is, well, if there's a buried foundation of a building, they don't burrow there because they can't get in. So they can actually see the edges of ancient cities that are buried under the ground by watching the patterns that the mole rats have dug over the centuries. And so they can say, oh, there must be a foundation here because there's mole rats burrowing here, but not here. So there must be a foundation here. So they've been able to find a lot of stuff in that area by just watching mole rats. Not my chosen field, fortunately. So there's a lot happening. But again, I want to point out that we look at these things and they're interesting to us. But the thing that I want to mention to you is that, you know, there's a lot of knowledge to be had out there. There's a lot of information that's out there, but we're not going to prove the existence of God by looking at the archaeological record. The existence of God and the truth of the Bible are inherent in that document. We don't need archaeological proof that the Bible is true. We have faith because God gives us the ability to understand and believe that what the Bible is written is true, not the other way around. So let's close with a word of prayer. Heavenly Father, thank you for this world and the richness of what we're seeing in the world. You have put in place so many things that reinforce our faith. They don't make our faith, but they allow us to reach out to a world in a way that indicates that our faith isn't blind, that we're not just believing in myths. And help us to understand the truth of your word and to reach out to those around us to be witnesses in your world. Help us to honor you in the things that we say and do with the people that come across our paths, with those people that you bring to us to share and witness to. We're just grateful for all that you've done for us individually. Watch over us all and keep us safe in this day. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. Thank you very much.